Okay, can we start? Yeah. Now I would like to speak about tractive rolling contact. And this is the same type of application, which is a tire and road application. This is a little more applied. I will show you real tire, truck tires, twin truck tires. Because I am working with colleagues from civil engineering, and in civil engineering, they like to do test and simulation with the real parts. This is another philosophy. And, they don't like a sphere on a flat surface. For them, it means nothing. And to be comprehensive here, I will not mix tractive rolling contact and viscoelasticity. It will be only elastic. Okay, but it will be multi-layered bodies and coatings, many coatings, or one or several coatings. And but for the real applications, and my colleagues from the other universities are doing mostly experiments. They have a big building, and I will show you at the end the machines they are using, but they reproduce the contact between the tire and the road, and they are able to remove the road and to put a new one. They are working with engineering companies that are making roads in France and highway, and they try to develop new material for that. And this is the environment context of the study. And this work has been supported by some French National Agency for Research. And also we are starting a new project with them in the continuation of this work. And then we are interested by two types of problems. The first one is the creation of valley furrow on the road due to heavy trucks. And also you have to know that in France, in Europe, to reduce the oil consumption and so on, the petroleum consumption, they decided to increase the maximum weight of trucks, which means that that will damage the road a little more. And there is another thing which is also now typically companies manufacturing tires, they are doing better job. They have tires that are stronger, sometimes thinner, but the load is the same, which means a higher contact pressure. And in civil engineering, they do not understand very much how it works in contact mechanics. The background is not the same. Of course, they have some clever guys that are working on that, but only a few. Then for us, it is very interesting because we can spread our knowledge on contact mechanics for some useful purpose. This is an example of what you can see in the city of Lyon, in front of you where you live. This is not the place where I live. This is the place where my student was living. He was working on this topic. And you can see here, typically, the mark on the road. And something which is interesting is that the valley is deeper nearby the bus stop station than elsewhere. Then there is some effect of braking and accelerating. And you can see the sun, and it is very hot. The road is less stiff, is softer, and okay. And the second point is that not only the permanent deformations is interesting, but also the cracking, because you don't have that here, hopefully, but in France it is freezing during winter. Then when the water is coming into the cracks, very quickly in the winter it will destroy the road. Then cracks is a very important problem. Okay. And we have two types of cracks. The first one is the cracks that we have at the surface, and the second one are the cracks that are at the interface between the first layer and the second layer, for example. Okay. Then we try to work on that, and then what I have presented to you before, typically the stress at the interface is very important. And also we are interested by the tensile stress at the surface and the direction of the maximum principal stress, which is tensile stress, because it gives you the direction of the crack, which is perpendicular to the direction of the maximum tensile stress. Okay, this is the background. Then you can see a little more, but you don't have the profile. But and it is very, very costly in France. It costs, I think, the cost should be about 50 billions of euros each year to maintain the roads. And what they are doing, they use a machine to green the pavement. They just remove the first layer, maybe 5 centimeters, and they refill that with a new bituminous material. This is the way they are doing. And when you take the highway, everywhere, always there is some work on the road. They close 2 lanes to just 1 lane to travel. Then we are not very happy to have to pay for the freeway and to drive very slowly because there is some work on. This is typically the materials that they have for the road. Then the first layer is what they call the surface course. You can have 1 or 2 materials. Usually you have 2 materials. The first one is the surface course, and you have a second bituminous material. When you repair, maintain the road, you remove only the first layer. Okay? The first layer is a few centimeters thick. The second one can be 10 or 20 centimeters. So it's thicker. So this is not the proportion. And after you have, foundation means it's nothing, the earth. And you have different base course or sub-base. It can be small rocks, medium rocks, sand, everything is mixed. But what is important are the 2 first layers, which are bituminous materials. And on the abscissa, it means the Young modulus. You can have an idea of that. Then typically, the Young modulus of the 2 first layers are higher than the one of the basement. And this is some record of the temperature of the road. Also because when you have a black car, you know that when the car is black, temperature is higher than when the color is white. It's the same for the bituminous, because it's black, it can be very, very hot. Even if the air temperature is 35 degrees, you may reach 50 or more, 60 degrees for the top layer surface. Okay, so this is a variation of the temperature of the road, depending on the time of the day and depending on the season. Okay, then I will go very quickly for the contact solver because you know a lot about that, and I will present the visco layer as just before, and I will focus mostly on the tractive contact between the tire and the road for an homogeneous materials or for a multi-layered material. Maybe something that I did not present, but okay, with our code we can do many simulations. This is, for example, butterfly creation. And the butterfly, this is in rolling contact fatigue. When you have an inclusion in a steel material below the surface, when the load is rolling on the inclusions several times, you create what we call a butterflies, 2 wings, which are inclinated about 45%, which are inclinated in the direction. If the rolling is going like that, the wings will be like that. And this is, in fact, a plastic zone. There is some change of the material microstructure. There is a refinement of the grains. And when you have these wings, very often quacks appear at the border between the refined domain and the elastic domain. And typically, if you cut the material, you will see some quacks. Then this is a simulation that we can do with our solvers, and we have a damage model, and we can predict the butterfly wing, the shape, the length, and so on, how it evaluates with a number of cycles. And also, I use that sometimes for some expertise. For example, I remember in the past I was able to determine that the failure of the bearing was due to the quack below the surface, because we found some quacks around inclusions and the quacks were parallel to the main quacks until the surface, just to show that it was not a surface initiated damage, but it was coming from subsurface. At the bottom, you have here a nice animation of an inclusion which is moving through a contact. In fact, here, what we can see here is a stress field, okay, or maybe the Tresca shear stress. Then you have 2 different depths, this one and the second one. On the left, the depth is lower, it's close to the surface. On the right, it's deeper. Then you can see when the inclusion is close to the surface, it modifies the contact pressure. Okay, here you can see that there is a perturbation of the contact pressure, whereas on the left, you can see it now, whereas on the right, there is no effect. Again, the distance between the inclusion and the surface is very, very important. And before the inclusion, which is here harder than the matrix, before the inclusion comes into the contact, you cannot see it because the frame is elastic and there is no initial deformation, no initial display, no initial residual stress, because we do not consider that the inclusions is shrink within the body. It's just we put an inclusion without any load. Then you cannot see it. But after, when the inclusion is moving away from the contact, you can still see it. Why? It's because you have some plasticity and you can see some residual stresses. And that provides some stresses within the inclusions and outside the inclusions. Okay? Then this is another view of what I have presented before. And again, this is what we can do. We can work on real composite materials. And this is a view of the stress distribution when you have an indentor acting loaded on the 3D composite. Okay. These are just some application of what I presented. Okay, then I will skip everything here. Then, okay, as I said before, this is typically the materials that we will look for. Maybe something else about the surface layers. In fact, bituminous asphalt is not something which is completely homogeneous. In fact, it's not homogeneous, of course, but there is many voids inside, many cavities. We have a project now that we are starting, and it is just the beginning, but we are working on the project since now 2 years, but we just start the research. The first part of the research will be to use cylinder of asphalt, typically 5 centimeters by 10 centimeters. Then like that, we compress them and we put them on a tomograph. In fact, a tomograph, a double tomograph. We have a high-speed tomograph of very high power, 322 kilovolt, with 2 sources which are identical. And with this principle, it's possible to make a 3D acquisition very quickly, because what we do, we just make an acquisition. You know, initially you have to make rotating the cylinder, and then you have to rotate it. And with only a single source, you can scan the material and measure, for example, the void proportion. So you can see the small stones and the bituminous and so on. You can separate the phase. And now with this device, what we do is we make compressive tests within the machine. And because we have 2 sources, we can make very fast acquisition without rotation. Because we take 2 images which are perpendicular, and when we compare that to the initial 3D image, we can determine the change, and then we can do like that scanning at a very high speed. Okay. Then what I want to say is that there is not only the viscoelastic properties of the layers that are important, there is also the porosity, because under load you can have a compaction. And this is one of the key points for the permanent print on the surface, which is mostly due to the compaction of the material. We don't deal with that today. Next time I will be invited, maybe I can talk about that. Okay, then now we have several layers. Then the FT means fast Fourier transform of that. Then we use, in fact, the Papkovich-Neuber potentials. Okay, this is the base of the method, and the method, in fact, was proposed by O'Sullivan and King. Then, I said before, in 1988, and in this method has been extended now to viscoelastic materials. In fact, there is many things in the literature, and just you have to assemble an idea from different authors. And this is what we did. And now there is some conditions which are that at the surface you have pressure distribution. You can remark that the pressure is equal to the normal stress, sigma zz. With a sign plus or minus, it depends on the direction of you are dealing with. There is some shear stress at the surface, and then zy is okay. This one is equal to 0, and now when you have okay at the infinity far from the surface, when z here z equals 0, this is the surface. Here this is at the infinity. You should have the solution which tends to 0 because this is half space. There is no displacement, no strain, no stress. Then no displacement, no stress. And as I said before, here you have the continuity of here, for example, of the stress and of the displacement. But you can modify that if you like. We didn't do that, but it's possible to change the boundary condition between each layers. G is a layer, and G plus 1 is the next layer, bottom. So the first one is at the surface. Then we do a Fourier transform, and to solve the problem in the frequency domain, and then after that we do the inverse Fourier transform to have the solution in the space domain. Okay, then again you have the creep function, which depends on the shear stress of the material, the elastic properties. Then mu and nu are the mu and lambda are the Navier coefficients, equivalent to U modulus and Poisson ratio. So you have to discretize in time step the problem. We have to keep in memory what happened in the previous time step, because this is very important for the solution for viscoelastic materials. And then this way we can find we are here mostly interested by the vertical displacement. Sometimes I use Z, sometimes I use 3, but the same, this is always the vertical displacement. And B2 here means body 2, and this is one of the body. Here typically we are interested by the lower material, which is body 2. Body 1 is the top material. That can be elastic or that can be rigid, it doesn't matter. Something which is very costly is that we have to recalculate each time the Green coefficients. This is one of the difficulties of the technique. When we deal with an elastic problem, you have you calculate at the beginning the Green functions and you store it, that's it. Okay? If you do always the same type of calculation, you can even calculate the Green coefficient one time, you store them, and you just call them when you need to call them. Okay? It depends on the strategy, but for us, we calculate Z each time. It's not too costly because you do that only one time. But when you deal with viscoelastic materials, you have to recalculate them each time. Then this is why it is quite costly, except when you are in the steady state regime, then you can avoid the recalculation. Then again, I discussed about that before. Now a few notions about what we call rolling, pure rolling and attractive rolling. In fact, here, if you let a ball falling along a plate like that, there is it will roll without any. Okay, if you neglect micro sliding or if you have a friction coefficient which is 0, this is what we call free rolling. There is no dissipation, no force acting against the movement of the ball, and so on. Now, if you want to clip like that big ball, in fact, if there is, for example, here, if there is a friction coefficient, or if there is no friction coefficient, it will be complicated because you have almost to push everything by your hand. But in the principle, if there is some friction coefficient, the idea is that the friction coefficient will keep a part of the load, and you can just have by some moment you can help to move the movement. Here you have in the contact you have a distribution of shear stress. You have the Hertzian pressure distribution, but you have a distribution of a shear stress which is not nil. Okay, then the equations that you have to solve are the following. Then the traction force at the surface in both directions, and if x is the direction of movement, it corresponds typically to the result of acceleration or braking. It's not only acceleration. For example, if you drive a truck or your car, if you have a big slope, you have a tractive rolling because you need to climb the small hill. Okay, so the slope, you need to have that. The same when you are descending from a hill, you have to brake. Even if you stay at the same speed, then you have to brake. Then there is some inverse tractive rolling. And now in the transverse direction, although we have to work on that because this is the resistance force against centrifugal force. And you don't want that your car is moving away from the road when you have a turn. And then last, we have the rolling torque because there is some dissipation within the contact. Not the rolling torque, the spinning torque. And because there is also some dissipation, especially when you turn, when you have some about turnabout or within a virage, then you need to calculate the spinning torque. Then I will show you some examples with different situations, acceleration or braking within a virage, and with or without spinning torque. Then what is important and not easy to calculate is the slip. The slip, when you consider 2 points, one from the top body, one from the lower body, when the 2 points comes in contact, you should calculate how they will slip from each other at each time step, and you should record that. And this is what we call the slip. Usually in the book they use S as a term for that, and typically this is the work of Calcare. In fact, okay, if you know the contact code, which is contact, sold by University of Twente or Eindhoven, 20, I think, 20. Yes, this is what they do. When you see a dot here, it's the derivative of the distance by time. Okay, then again you have the stick slip conditions. Then the shear stress is lower than this time the friction coefficient is F, and the shear stress is lower than the pressure times the friction coefficient. And this is sticking, and when you start to slide is that because Q equals P times the friction coefficient. And as I said again before, when the sum of the sticking area plus sliding area correspond to the contact domain, which means that you cannot at the same time slip and stick. The same with the finite element method, you cannot apply at the same time a displacement and a force. You have to choose. Okay? And then we have to be careful with that when we solve the problem numerically. Then this is typically the type of results we can get. Then Calcare, the book has been published in 1990. In fact, he did his PhD on the subject and wrote a book later. Maybe there is 2 versions of the book. And then you can see what he did. In fact, at that time, the mesh was very coarse, maybe 10 elements by 10 elements, and with 5 or 6 in the contact in each direction. Then, but he got nice figure. Then you can see here, for example, you remember this type of figure. The dashed line corresponds to the pressure distribution, and you can see after indentation, a sphere against the flat surface, you can see that the shear stress has this pattern. Then here it is equal to mu times the pressure. Then this is sliding here, which corresponds to S. S means sliding, and A means adherence. Because sliding and stick, you have to use SL, ST, they use S and A, which is clever. Okay, then you can see here. And when now you can start to roll, the ball will start to roll in the rolling direction. And at the beginning, you will see that. Then in the front of the contact, you have here adherence, and here you still have sliding. Then this is 1 unit means you have you discretize your contact in a small, and then you move from 1 unit. And you can see here, for example, that after 5 units, he reached the steady state regime, which also means that there is 5 units in the contact. Okay, then you can see that it discretises the contact with only 5 by 5 elements, which is very, very small. And then here you have the transient solution, and after a given time, you reach the steady state regime, which is like that. Okay, then in front of the contact, then ahead of the tire and rod, you have sticking, and you slide behind the contact. And these are all numerical results. Then just to compare to that, and okay, you can see that we have a good agreement. There is some difference. However, I recall that they have only a few elements, and we have much more elements in this area. And here in this figure, we try to have the sliding area with some with a small s, means sliding. Then you can see the limit between the sliding area and the sticking area. Okay, there is some difference, but globally it looks like the same. And also you can see the magnitude of the shear stress.
So the rolling direction is
From left to right.
for calcar, it's left to right, because I think it. Acha, addition is addition. Okay.
Yes, it's sticking.
It is sticks at the front.
Yes. Okay, and then okay, this is also a comparison to previous work we did just before when we were preparing the work on this topic. Okay, then remember what is important is Dunder's constant, in fact, which varies between minus 0.5 and plus 0.5. In fact, what is important is the absolute value, not the value. The absolute value is the main important parameter. And then we will study the effect of 3 types of tangential or spinning force, and the tangential force along the rolling movement, then acceleration or braking, the tangential force in the transverse direction due to centrifugal force, for example, and the spinning torque around the normal of the contact due to rotation of the wheel. Okay, and this is for the first simulation. This is for similar elastic bodies. Then you can see, I don't know if there is some animation. Okay, anyway. This is in the steady state regime. Okay, there is animation now. Okay, this is at the end. Now this is for the steady state regime. You can see then this is the absolute value of the shear stress. Then it integrates the effect along x and the y direction. You can see here we start from the indentation problem and we start to roll. Then for sliding or tractive force along x or along and sliding along the y direction, we have about the same shear stress profile. Here, this is divided by the maximum contact pressure. This is okay, but you cannot with that know if it is sliding or sticking. To know that, you have to divide by the friction coefficient times the pressure at the point you are looking for. Okay? And then, when you do that, when it is equal to 1, then when it is dark red, it means that you are sliding. Okay? You cannot see that here. Then I prefer the lower column, the lower row here. Then you can see the sliding area, which is this one along the x direction, when you have tractive force along the x direction. You can see that, okay, it's quite close to this one. There is some difference, but it's not too different from if you have sliding in the transverse direction. Now, if you have spinning torque, this is very different. The pattern is very, very different. There is one consequence, of course, on the adhesion of the tire on the road, but also there is some consequences about the life of the tire. Okay. And I don't know if there is other issue. For example, I don't know if you are interested by that in India, if it is a problem, but there is some health problem due to particle in air. And because in Europe they try to banish thermal engine cars, they try to promote as much as possible electric car who have no thermal engines. Now the main source of contaminant pollution in air, there is two sources. First, braking device, maybe 0.5%, with a lot of very bad particles, because the components they use for brake system are full of bad materials, heavy metals and so on. And the second part of contamination is due to the wear of tires. Okay? And wear, it's one problem. The second point is that when you have an electric car, usually you have to change your tires more often, because the wear is much more higher. For two reasons. The first one is usually they weigh much more than thermal engine cars, because due to the weight of the battery and so on, you increase the weight by maybe 20–30%. Then mathematically you should increase the wear of the tire by the same amount, 20 or 30%. And another very interesting phenomenon is that when you have an electric car, each time you stop to accelerate, you start to brake the car, you get back some energy, but that acts on the tire. Then you have a lot of wear on the tire due to that, because you produce energy, and with that solicitate the tire and road contact much more than an electric conventional car. When you stop to accelerate, it will just go away. Okay, then you can diminish by almost half the life of your tire in an electric car. Okay, now let's do the same. Now you know what are dissimilar bodies. Then this time, for example, the sphere has a very low Young modulus, and the rod has a very high Young modulus. Then we took this constant for beta, the Dunder's constant, and now we can see the same type of results. Then I don't know if you remember the slide before, but again we start from the indentation stage, and after we start to roll. Then now we can see very different results. You can see here for the tractive rolling or braking rolling, this is a transverse sliding due to centrifugal force, and this is due to spinning. Then at the end, the sticking area is this one for the tractive rolling. Okay. For centrifugal force, you will see that the sticking area is not anymore symmetric along the x-axis, and this is the solution when you have some spinning. And also something funny here is when you start, because for each situation we start from the same state. The initial state is the same. Maybe we'll see that here. Okay, it is first sticking in the center, and you can see some sticking area coming to the center from the right. Okay. So what we try to plot is very small, but there is some small arrows here, which means the direction of sliding. Then the shear stress is opposite to this direction. Then again, S means sliding area, sticking area. Then these are the situation after a certain number of rotation of the ball, but it happens very, very quickly. We reach the steady state regime very quickly. Then in this view, you cannot, okay, of course there is some mark to explain where is the sliding zone, but this is not explicitly given by the color on the map. And okay, the first picture corresponds to we have the same elastic materials, and the second one corresponds to dissimilar elastic materials. Then you can see here the effect of that. Of course, if you do not consider coupling between normal and tangential problem, you will not be able to find that. You should do that. And what is difficult is to capture the micro sliding. For those that are working on rolling element bearings, this is quite difficult, complicated to capture that within an elliptical contact for real application. And we try to do that for another project and to predict wear, because wear is related to the magnitude of the tangential force, shear stress, and the magnitude of the sliding. And you should solve that very accurately to be able to predict the wear. Okay? It's not trivial, it's not easy. Now this is, I said before, they like to have the real parts, and they do experiment with real tires and so on. This is a big truck with two twin tires at the rear. Okay. They obtain the geometry by what they call photogrammetry. In fact, you know stereo correlation, you know image correlation, DIC, digital image correlation. Okay, then it's the same principle, but with a very coarse mesh. Then, okay, this is a culture. When you do that, you have to work a lot on the quality of the image, because this is the real tire, and here you have very often some peak. You have to filter everything, and if you understand contact mechanics, you know that when you have a small peak, it will produce a huge peak of pressure. And when you get the geometry by photogrammetry, you need to work a lot to erase, to eliminate all the defects in the measurement. Then these are now the final shape of the tires that we are using for simulation. Another point is that the pavement is not smooth. It's very rough. It depends on the pavement. Also in France, we have different type of pavement. They can be porous, plus or less porous. The advantage is porosity. Advantage is it's for the rainy day. Okay. In fact, there is two ideas. You can optimize the effect for rainy day. Sometimes you can drive on the highway, and for some portion, you will see the road is almost dry, even if it is raining, because it's very porous and it drains water outside. And sometimes it's very wet due to the quality of the asphalt they use. This is the first point. And the second point is about the noise, because sometimes it's very noisy, especially when it is rough like that. And this is one of the problems, especially when the highway is coming close to a city or a small village. They try to modify the asphalt to have less noise. And there is some countries, such as in Japan. In Japan, the noise is first quality. For example, when they choose a tire, they choose the brand mark, a brand name, due to the quality of the noise. And I know that there is also today, especially I think it's Schaeffler, they are working on that for rolling bearings. They try to promote a noise grade. Then they develop a methodology, and you can ask them to buy a bearing with such type of noise grade. Okay, then noise is something also interesting. Then now you have here the different properties for each layer, and this is a multi-layered problem. Then you can see that the Young modulus for the surface layer, which is 5 centimeter thick, it's 2200. The second layer, which is again some asphalt, it's stiffer, at least 3 times stiffer than the first layer. And after you have different layers, which are very, very thick. Usually this one is not removed, it's always there for forever. And also there is some compaction during the first years of presence, and after you have, of course, other layers with different Young modulus and so on. And at the end, we assume this is quite like not rigid, but almost rigid compared to other Young modulus. Then you can see now the simulation of the real geometry, the same. On the top, this is only tractive rolling due to acceleration. Then this is the steady state solution, you can see on the top left. Then again, it is sliding. When it is red, it means it is sliding. Okay, you start from the static load, and after you try to drive, to run. And here, this is a view. This is a view of the von Mises stress. Okay, then everywhere in the material, and there is you can cut here. Then you can see the different layers. And of course, you have some stress concentration at the boundary between the second layer and the third layer, because this is where you have the biggest difference of the Young modulus. If you go back to here, you can see the Young modulus. There is a huge difference. And something funny also is that there is no optimization of the surface layer compared to the Hertzian depth. Of course, here this is a tire, and there is no, this is not a simple geometry, but okay, in this domain, in civil engineering, they do not consider that. And as I said yesterday, to me, the best coating should be with a gradient or very, very small, and we should absolutely avoid to have an interface at the Hertzian depth. But you can see here, this is not the case. Then it will explain why you can damage. And depending on the company that is building roads and highway, they use different thickness and different materials. In fact, they are mostly working by experiments. They try. It's mostly empirical. If it works after 10 years, they will reproduce that for 10 more years. And it's very long because it will be in practice for many, many, many years. Then they need some tool for that. Just to have an idea of the cost for the simulation. Okay, this time is more recent. Just we did that last year, 2 years ago. Then okay, it's very, very, very fast because it's elastic. These are different situations. Then this is now there is some turnaround. Then you have no tractive force or braking force. You just have acceleration. And of course, there is some spinning torque. Then you can see here 3 different situations. Okay, then if I read the legend, then you have QX, the shear stress along the rolling direction X. You have QY, which is shear stress along the transverse direction. And okay, no, this one, sorry, this one, B, this one is a QX, then, okay, along the X direction, because you have some turnaround, this is positive in one direction, negative in the other direction, or the opposite, because you have some rotation. Then C is a QY, then because of course you have a centrifugal force which is the same for the two tires, this is in the same direction. And for and this is the norm, then the sum, the square root of the sum at the power 2. And this is the von Mises stress field, the square root of G2 invariant. Okay, then Foyer Wallace did the work and the PhD on this topic. Wanted to have some drift when young people drive a car. Sometimes, I don't know if it's the same in India, but they go to a parking in supermarket in France to do that. And then they accelerate. The car is turning around itself. Okay, then here you have everything all together. Then you can see how the stress and within the body are distributed, and how the stress at the surface are also distributed. And again, the shear stress along the X direction. the stress along the transverse direction, and also the sum of the two contributions, the norm in fact of that.
So drift will happen if Fy is, it will not happen if Fy is equal to 0. Because
In-
lateral force, drift give you lateral force,
yes,
and Fy is lateral force, right?
yes,
And Fx is longitudinal force.
yes. But even if you, for example, even if your front, if it is a truck, for example, or if you have a propulsion car, you can have the front wheels that does not move, but the rear will move. Then they will, okay, the car will turn around, the wheels will rotate. That will produce some shear stress along the rolling direction. And
Actually, during
because
turning also, steering also, this is going to be there. Fy will be there during steering.
yes,
also.
yes.
It can be there because of some lateral force like wind also coming.
Yes, of course. And also because here you have the speed of the two wheels will be the same. There is no differential. Okay, it can be, but okay.
There is no sticking now. Drift, there is no sticking.
There is no sticking. No.
Yeah. Only front wheels stick,
Yes.
rear wheels are...
Yes, sliding. Okay, this is a comparison of the strain. Then you can imagine that we put some strain gauge below the surface, then between the two layers. Also we were able to do that in the test bench because we can build your own rods. Then we put some strain gauge like that. I will show you some comparison between the two results. And then we can estimate the strain, the epsilon xx strain, then which is this one. Okay, it means if you are in tensile stress or compressive stress along this direction. This is on the left, and on the right, this is epsilon yy. This is in the transverse direction. It's the same. Okay, and you can see the plot for pure rolling or for tractive rolling with acceleration. Then you can see that you can have some compressive stress, for example, here strain up to 150 megapascal. And no, this is micro deformation, and this is 10⁻⁶ meter by meter strain, and also you can see on the right the same, which is also negative here. This is another view. This time you can see the Tresca, then the Tresca stress, equivalent stress, that you can compare to the. Then this is at the surface, and you can compare to the resistance of the material, for example. But okay, you can see also the shape of the tire. You can see all the valley between the small block from the tire. And okay, this is pure rolling, then without any tractive force, and this is with acceleration. Then you can compare the magnitude. Then okay, there is a strong effect on the contact, of course. And the last point is we are also able to predict the direction of the principal stress and of the first principal strain, which are the same. In fact, the direction is the same. Then you can see here how the direction of the principal stress and of the principal strain, and they correspond to some cracks we can observe on the surface of the material. This is the same picture as the first one. And now this is an experiment And this is the building where they do experiments, because in the building they are able to do experiments with hot temperature and cold temperature. They have air conditioning inside, and they can heat that. Then this is new asphalt. Okay, you can see the size of the guy. These are trucks tires. And in the principle here, you have, this is a schematic view of the machine. You have twin wheels like that, and they are rotating like that. Okay. And there is a speed which is up to 22 kilometers. This is the maximum speed. And the maximum load per twin tires is 6.2 tons. In fact, this machine, we bought this machine in Switzerland because a professor from EPFL was getting retired, and then in Switzerland, when the professor is retired, they close the laboratory. Everybody is fired. And as was the equipment, then we bought this. It cost a few millions of euros. We bought that 100,000 euros. It was difficult for two reasons. The first one, because Switzerland is not in Europe. Then we have to cross the border and to pay some tax. It was extremely complicated to give, to explain the purpose of the machine and so on. And also the second point was that it is a huge machine. To put it on a truck, to transfer it to the lab, it was also complicated. This is not in Lyon, this is in Limoges, another city where my colleagues are working on that experimentally. And this machine, in fact, is made, is from South Africa. And with the machine, there is a tent, there is a table, there is everything. It has been built to be on site. You move that. You want to go maybe on the highway between Bangalore and Coimbatore and Palakkad. You put that in the middle of the road, and you may test during 1 month, and then you observe how the pavement behaves. And okay, this is used like that. And then we bought that, and we put that in the building, and we do experiment with that. Each time we have to renew the bituminous here. We move it away, and we make tests and so on. Although there is many other applications for that, in these cities are working a lot for civil engineering. In one part of the city, for example, they have heating asphalt. I mean, during winter time, there is no ice because they heat the asphalt. Sometimes they try to harvest energy. Okay, they are doing a lot of things with that. Okay, you can see how it works. And because we are able to be present when they build the new pavement, we can put some strain gauge inside it. And this is an example of, okay, then on the way, then these are the two tires here. We put some strain gauge in the middle of the twin tires along the X direction, and some strain gauge just at the border of the wheel. And here are the measurements for strain XX and strain YY. You can see quite a good agreement between experiments and modeling. Okay. Maybe I did not discuss that too much, but maybe you have seen that the pressure distribution below the tire is quite smooth, in fact. Okay, there is some the effect of the geometry, but there is no edge effect. You can look when you see some trucks. You can have a look on the tire. Sometimes they are very straight. There are some corners which are very, very sharp. This is not the case here. But if you have very sharp corner, you will have a peak of pressure that will damage much more the road. But nobody takes care of that. The manufacturers, they build tires, and nobody considers that it is damageful for the road. But it can be very, very damageful. Okay, I think this is what I wanted to present you about that. And okay, then now we are still working on that. We have many things to do. And okay. Here there is no coupling between viscoelasticity and that, but just because we need time to do that. Do you have any question about that? Then this is an application of what we have seen before for the tractive rolling contact.
Slide number 22 can you please? Here, like when we are going from like x-axis to y-axis, why those peaks and shifts are coming?
Okay, let me X. Okay, I should remember what it is.
Actually, we see same peaks. Actually, if you go with the experimental one, next slide. Yeah, here it is not matching as well.
That is for the model, yes. That's for the model.
It is not matching with experimental. The same it is coming to us model.
I assume that for the previous simulation, first the strain gauge should be at the same position, which is just at the border of the tire. Okay. I think it comes from the fact that no, in fact, I don't know. Yes, I don't know. Good question. I have to think about.
Slide 18. Here, the Poisson ratio is constantly defined through 3-5 hours.
Yes, I think this is what our colleagues are using in civil engineering. We took the same thing. Although maybe there is another point that I didn't mention, which is what is the Young modulus of the tire. Because you understand that when we do the simulation, we have for one body we have a multi-layered body, which is the pavement, but for the tire we assume that it is homogeneous, and we consider the Young modulus, the medium Young modulus, including the rubber of the tire, the steel cables, and the air within it. And how we do that? In fact, we did experiments with a real tire. We compress it between two plates. We put on the bottom a TechScan plate. TechScan is a device, I don't know if it is US or I don't know, TechScan. There is many sensors. It's an array of sensors, maybe 100 by 100. And each sensor, you measure the load, then you can have an idea of the stress distribution. And then, knowing that, we fit the Young modulus for the tire to obtain the same results as the experiments. Okay, we do that like that. But it is static. There is no rolling because you will destroy the TechScan plate if you roll on it.
So it is indicating that if you change the multi-layers Young modulus value, then also Poisson ratio will remain same. Because multi-layers, you see Young modulus values are changing
Yes.
layer by layer. Still it is same. So if you put another material, let's say, which is having different Young modulus value, then again the Poisson ratio will remain same, of course.
Yes, yes. In fact, everything will change a lot. Maybe for what is interesting is the size of the contact, the area of the contact. Because you have like a finite cylinder, the width is the same. Okay, even if you have a low pressure, high pressure, but the difference will be the width along the rolling direction. It can be if you have a flat tire, it will be very large. If the pressure inside, the inflate pressure is very high, it will be very small. Not very, but it can vary this way. And in fact, it doesn't change too much. The Young modulus of the tire doesn't change too much the contact area. Not like a sphere on a flat surface. Well, it is more important.
viscoelastic material, you've taken the model, viscoelastic model, right?
Not here. Here, I said before, it
Yeah,
is just purely elastic, and now we need to couple both. But you know, there is no complexity, but we need to do that.
So relaxation effect is not here.
Not here, not yet. Not yet. Each time we do a new thing, we have to validate it. We have to write a paper. You have to write the PhD thesis. We have to consolidate the tools, the software, because we should be able to use it for the next step. We have to promote the work. We have to think about the next project, and okay, but we can do that. There is no difficulty. In fact, we have all the tools. Then I don't know if you would like to move for the lunch, because okay.
Yes, sir. We can move for
Because after I will start with a small video to explain the accident first. And maybe it's better to start with that than to start that now before lunch. Maybe you can keep that for after lunch. Okay.
So lunch has been arranged at Agora at 1 o'clock. So maybe we can. Agora is the first building. When you enter the campus, your left you can see Agora. So there is annex. I think RU students, scholars will guide you. We can try to be there by 1 o'clock. So once the lunch is over, we can continue our session.
2 o'clock.
What was mine?
2 o'clock. What?
We'll start again at 2 o'clock.
No. The schedule is 3, right? 3. Okay. Okay. Today it is 3. Tomorrow it can be 2 because we'll go to the computer lab again.
Yes, tomorrow if I can have 30 minutes to try to make the fretting model for a cylinder after or before you, because several people asked me yesterday to try to do that tomorrow. Then okay, just 30 minutes it will be enough.